Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be finishing the steering column, the little bit that just needs to get out to the engine bay. Got a couple pieces for that, and we're gonna test fit a set of pedals. I 3D printed a reverse mount top swing pedal box. So we're gonna fit that up. We're gonna figure out how we're gonna mount it up, send it all off to be cut out of steel and get it welded up and placed in the car. So with that, I'll get to showing how far I've kind of gotten with a couple things, as they were non-necessary to kind of show the whole process of getting it back into the car. Okay, so we got the dash and the driver's seat back in the car, as they're a little bit needed for fitting at least the column up. I wanted to make sure it was good where it was sitting. Inside of the car seems kind of blurry, but we got our got the driver's seat in. It's kind of in the right position. It's bolted into the right position, but I don't have power in the car, so I can't really make sure that I'm physically sitting exactly the way I want. But the steering wheel located perfectly all the way down on the column with the back, everything. I'm happy with the fitment of it, so that worked out really well. Got my Illis Momo mounted up in here with just a 3D printed hub adapter, as again mine's on its way, so hopefully I get that soon. Okay, so we're gonna jump over the computer. I'm gonna show off my pedal set that I made for the car, and then we'll jump back to the garage and continue on what we were doing. Okay, so screen recording isn't my forte here, so kind of camera setup at the computer. These are my reverse mount pedals for the E36. We have a 6:1 ratio, so from the center bolt down here to our mount bolt here is 9.5 inches, and from our mount bolt to where the clevis from the master cylinders will mount is an 1.6 or 1.5 almost, which gives us our 6:1 pedal ratio for manual brakes. As you can see by this, that's the clutch pedal there. The brake pedal is notched out at the top here because we're going to buy a pre-made balance bar that comes with all the bearings and all the pieces we need to fit in. We're going to be pivoting on a 1/2 inch bolt. The hole up there, that's a 5/16 for the rod end. Everything's basically modeled off Willwood parts. So we got 5/16 mounting holes, which we'll put studs in. Everything is slotted so that when this comes apart, because it can be cut at companies like Suncut Send, so we can slot it together. Even our lower mounts here, you can see the holes, they're slotted. Put it in, weld those up, run a bead along this line here, same with up there. As you can see, there's no bracing yet, as we need to mount this to our rain tray, so our bracing is gonna come off of these onto this and up top, which we'll make afterwards. After designing everything up, we've now got it on the 3D printer. We'll be back in probably about a day. There's 12 hours of printing here, so here's just a little view of it making the dual master side, and we'll be back when it's all done. But with that, we can start making our hole here bigger. I had to grind it a little bit more to get the column through it. And that would be this piece here. So what we have, let me get the bearing off. We have 14 inches of 3/4 inch 36 spline. This goes directly into, I won't really be able to show it, but that little piece that we had cut off the end of this that has the view splines on it. So this slides directly into it, as the other side like that is a 3/4 smooth. It's meant for welding it on, just like how that one is there. So what we'll be doing is shortening up this just a little bit. As you can see, I already cut the thread or the spline off of this end so that we can go. So that's all the way up in there. As you can see, we come through the firewall nice. But even with it tightened onto the power steering box, you can see we got a little bit of play up, down. That's just kind of what happens. I mean, it'll probably get tighter if I double check that it's fully clamped, but we don't want the ability of it doing any of this. So what we're gonna do is, I've got some 1 3/4 with an 1 5/8 inside, 1 5/8 outside, 3/4 inside bearing. This is going to get mounted in here. I've already started kind of cleaning it out to get it to fit well, but I have a 3D printed bearing in here, along with one for the other side to kind of sit in. What we're going to do with this is it slides up and over. Probably gotta clean it out just a little bit to get it to go farther up, but we're going to trace this line onto our firewall and cut this in. We're going to cut it down quite a bit because we only need enough to fit the bearing and just get through the firewall. So this is going to be where the bearing sits, and it's going to hold our steering shaft exactly where we need it to be. We'll end up welding this up probably first before fully welding this in, just in case. But this is going to be our backer there with a piece of 1/8 inch over the face, so the bearing doesn't want to fall out, and be able to install the bearing from the inside. So this will sit in there and hold this in place and put our 3/4 universal on, which I have here. 3/4 36 spline, slides up and over. We'll be nipping back these, as I want the edge of this tucked up against here. I don't want to see any splines, so it'll sit more up there once we're all done. But this goes from 36 3/4 spline to 3/4 double D, which that'll go down to our rack once we get all this kind of in place. But we'll get started with cutting the hole bigger, getting that welded in, and finalizing this piece so that we can get onto our pedals, as this will affect where our printed pedal box. So I based this a little bit off of the Willwoods. It uses Willwood master cylinders up here. It is a 6:1 ratio, which I think just before this video, because I'm kind of doing this out of order, I'll have the video of me showing it on the computer. But we're a 6:1 pedal ratio, 3D printed in plastic. As you can see, there's nothing up here for mounting. This has been left open so we can get it under the dash and come up with a way to not only brace this, but get it into the car as well. We have our pedal out of the X5, but it's the same one for all M54 motors. It's the just drive-by-wire. We'll get this mounted in there as well. With our pedals, we have a Turner pedal kit. The other one of these is up by my computer, so I can copy it to make a mount so we can actually fit it on here. But Turner pedal kit for it. These will go nice in there. But let's get back to mounting up, or well, finishing our steering. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is we're gonna slide this up, which can only really go about this far before it touches the firewall. As you can see, I started tracing it. I need to find a better marker. We're gonna die grind that till this just fits through the hole. And then we're gonna seat it so that this lower edge right here is essentially as flush as we can get. Whatever edge ends up being the most flush, which actually might be this corner here, touches, that's going to be where we're flush to the firewall, and the rest will stick out that little bit so that we can put our bearing in here, and then we'll get to cutting a piece of 1/8 inch to cover the end so our bearing doesn't come out, and then trim off everything that sits behind the firewall. Okay, so with our steering shaft out, I'm going to pull the other end off the box and we'll get it welded there once this piece is fully welded in. But to start, I want to shorten our splines here, because as you can see, let's get this position, it comes right through the end. And what I want is this back edge to sit roughly 1/8 of an inch from the very end of the spline. So when you go in, it ends up here. So what we're going to do is we only need roughly 1 inch worth of spline so that it sits in here, doesn't protrude, so you can get full turn on it. Obviously, I don't need this to be able to sink like that. It's not necessary. And if you're sinking like this, you need the double joint one, or you need to be able to put another one. But we're going to cut this down. We're going to draw our line, because you can see in there where the splines protrude into the hole. We'll end up drilling that through and making a flat spot in here so the bolt can go through here and tighten down so we don't have any issues. So with that, we need roughly that much spline. Now, as you can see, it's nice and short, even bottomed out in there. We're right to the end, so we can twist that all the way to the back, which gives us our full lock, and you can see we have just a hair of spline, which is what I'm looking for. Honestly, I can dump this right down to the back. This thing is never gonna hopefully go past that, but I do just want to ensure that it has as much range of motion as possible. So with that, this is essentially done. I'm gonna put it to lock. One side seems to have more than the other, but that's where we are. We're gonna mark our splines down in there, give it a groove, and I'm gonna find a bolt for that. So as you can see, we have a small witness mark. I'm gonna take the grinder, make that a bit bigger so that we can get a bolt through it. So you can see our witness mark, we've now made it a rather large spot so that when you stick your steering shaft universal over, it gives you, it's really hard to see in there, but it gives you a spot for the bolt to go through, clamp down, and that also stops this from wanting to slide out of here. It shouldn't because it's clamped, but that adds a little bit of extra by clamping it down and adding a spot for the bolt to grab, and it can't really go past that. So we have a bolt, just a 5/16/18, if I'm not mistaken, that threads right in. I'm gonna end up getting a nice stainless one for this, as it's not nice. I would like to get a stainless socket. So what we do is we slide that in there. Gotta make sure it is lined up as flat as possible for it. That'll push through. But before it's even tightened, you can see like that gap has enough that I can slide this in and out and it won't fall off. So that's already secure, pretty good like that. it won't allow it to fall off. But you obviously take your bolt, snug it right down, and now you have a two-factor of it not falling off. It's clamped into place, which on its own is almost good enough. But with that, you now have the bolt, if this comes loose ever so slightly. I mean, you could put a little lock nut on this end, or a grub nut, something to, you know, stops this from wanting to be able to back off. But this stops it from wanting to come out, but also clamps it down. So we're nice and clamped in. And this part is essentially done and ready to go into the column. We just need to weld our piece on the other side, which we'll get to once this is welded in place. So I'll be back with hopefully fitting this. Okay, so I got the hole made and our piece fitted through. So now we'll just cap this end, fill in our little bit of a gap, because yes, I got a little carried away in some spots, but this will get welded into here. Our end will sit on, and what I thought was going to need to be cut back some more is actually perfect length, because I have just a little bit sitting out of there. We'll put the cap on the end of this and then be able to slide our bearing all the way down to the bottom. And this is done. So I'll get the welder set up and we'll get to burning this in. So with welding that, we'll get this welded in, and as you can see, it's a snug fit because this is a 3/4 smooth onto 3/4 smooth. So we're going to run a nice bead around here. This slides into the column or into the bottom of the power steering box. It's the view coupler. And then obviously this is going to go through that with this on the end so that we have a nice smooth, not able to move bearing. So it's still hot, but look at that nice bead. It's gonna hold. I have zero qualms about this thing ever breaking. It's a solid bead, run very hot to make sure I got some good penetration through it. So I feel confident in this, and the fact that this is straight into here, all of it lines up. When I spin it, when it was in the car, it didn't go up or down, so I know that these are all in line with each other. So this is done. I'm gonna take this, grind this up and make it look pretty on this end, because that's the engine bay side, and then we'll get it welded in. Okay, so now you can see what I'm going for here. Yes, I have a little bit too much gap here up at the top. I'm gonna have to deal with that, but it's not the worst thing. We are sitting just barely out, which is what I wanted, just gives enough gap. Our universal comes right up to the edge here, so we're gonna get to welding this thing into place. Gonna grind it up just a little bit. It's gonna need a bit of body work to be perfect, but we are in place. I wonder if I can get a good visual under here. There we go. Of our column in place. We can see how everything's going. Comes down, fits really nice down into there. So with that, we will get to welding this piece into place and get on to figuring out how we're going to mount those pedals up under here. Okay, so got it all welded in, ground nice and smooth, so it looks like it's one piece with the firewall. Everything fits up real nice, spins really easily, which Even with the motor, there's a little bit of resistance, but that's how it is with an electric motor. But we now have this. At some point I gotta get the plastic bushings out of it, but now we can get underneath the dash and start looking at how those are gonna mount up. So with that, I have removed the physical dash as I know my limitations of where we're going. So I'm gonna set this up and somehow make it fit. Not quite sure how she's gonna fit under there just yet. So first we're gonna start with the throttle pedal, reusing the kick down mounting point. Is it perfect? Not really, but it gives us a good idea where our pedal needs to be. So we can take our electronic pedal and hopefully I can one-hand this. Okay, so throttle pedal in position. Weirdly enough, actually fits up pretty well. So that gives us that. I think the bottom just needs to come down a hair, which is not the worst thing. But we're in position. Now it's finding how this will fit under here nicely. So essentially this is where, if I can actually... Okay, so I kind of ended off on a little rough note there, trying to get the pedals in place. As you can see, I'm in the car. I don't think they're going to work the way I wanted them to be the reverse inside. I have just barely enough room where the masters and everything would be, and with a firewall already welded in place. I don't think it's going to work the way I want it to be, which kind of sucks because I wanted to show mounting up, at least starting mounting the pedals, like making a bracket design to fit my custom pedals in. So with that, I think we have to go to my original idea of floor mount pedals, which requires a little bit more modification to the floor, which I kind of thought about doing anyway. I'll get the camera turned around and kind of show you where I'm going to do it, because I modified my plastic pedals to kind of fit. I mean, if I have to raise where my heel sits up just a little bit to make these work the way I want them to work, that's not a big deal. Or change the back so that the pistons kind of run upward instead of dead flat. It's not a big deal. You can make it, as long as everything kind of glides the way it's supposed to do, I should be able to make it work. But with that, I'll get this flipped around and I'll show you what I'm kind of thinking. And hopefully we can get to flipping the car around so I can actually work through this door instead of climbing through the entire car just to get over here. So, like I was saying, I've cut my pedals so that they could sit and go here. So right now, essentially this is the height, if my cables weren't in the way. This is the height. I mean, it's quite a bit higher than where it should be, but this is where your foot would sit. So you want kind of the middle of your foot sitting at the tip of your pedal, which means I've got to sink these just a little bit into the floor there, but that, where the masters sit, they'll run into the wall, which I can fix. That's not a big deal, and I'll figure out how to get it to sit, make a little, boxed in section right here if I have to fully fit these in. But I need to be on this side of the car because it's very hard to crawl through here to get to here to do this. Like I said, it sucks. I wanted to show this. It was kind of a hope. Didn't work out the way I planned it. So I'm going to attempt to get some of this under the dash. I'm going to kind of end the video here. But stick around. There's lots more to go. So like I said, stick around for the videos. I hope you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Definitely subscribe to me. I'm trying to build a crazy daily car with stuff that it definitely does not need. This would be so much easier. The factory pedal box fits right there. The firewall didn't move front to back, so I could just run pedal box out into the engine bay. I just really don't want to have master cylinders out there. It will be my last ditch effort if I have to put them through the firewall. There is zero need for it. I've probably said it before. There is zero need for me to do this. I just really want to do it because I want a very smooth firewall with nothing on the outside, with very little lines and wires showing if I can do it. I'm going to try my hardest. But we do have a rocker and all this rust repair on this side, which means I need to get into the floor anyway. So what we're going to do is I'm going to end the video here. I kind of probably just said it, copying myself a few times. Gonna end it here. Hopefully I can get everything set up. I want to get the car flipped around for the next one so that we can start on this driver's side rust repair, as it will now kind of involve getting the pedals properly placed and harnesses up and out of the way, with also getting the fuse box mounted up under the dash, because now that I'm going to go down there, that means it kind of has a better spot to live that's not going to be completely in the way. So, like I said, hope you guys like, comment, subscribe. I got a lot coming. I'm really trying to build a cool car here. And we'll see you next time. Hopefully I get the video of it flipped around. Bye.